Good morning, everybody. Sorry to those of you who just heard me cough. I thought I could subtly do it without these plugged in. Oh gosh, sorry, we've got double feedback issues here. All right, let's start again. Good morning, everybody. I hope nobody heard me cough. I hope nobody heard me listening to myself on a 13-second delay. I have the iPad set up so I can read your comments as they come in. So please, if you have comments, type them up. Hopefully I will read them and answer for you guys. Excuse me 1 second. Alrighty, so today we are going to be looking at sharpening your carving gouges and carving tools. Most people are really surprised to learn that I actually rarely sharpen my tools. I mostly strop my tools, which is on a piece of leather with a compound. And if they do need actual sharpening, I will do that with either water stones or diamond stones. I rarely use a grinding wheel, and that is, it's unnecessary, I find, if you keep your tools sharp enough. If a tool is damaged, like it gets dropped on the concrete and gets a ding, you could, by hand, use it on the stones for long enough, but that would take a very long time. So then I'll put it onto the wheel. Or, of course, if you buy old tools and they are severely rusty, in need of a lot of TLC, then you might want to go onto a grinding wheel. But I will show you how I keep my tools nice and sharp. So I'll get that little piece of paper out the way. I will need that later to demonstrate something else. So first of all, I'm going to show you a water stone. See here, I've got them soaking in water. They need to absorb a lot of water. So if you've got them, you can just keep them in water all the time. Or if you don't want to keep them wet all the time, you really want to let them soak and let all the air bubbles come out of them before you start to use them. For years and years, I did all my sharpening on water stones. The one downside to them is that they do wear away. So this one actually has a dip. You probably can't see it. A very slight dip in the middle, which over time can be a bit of a hindrance. I'm just getting that nice and wet. Have a towel handy so you can keep your hands nice and dry, helps. So this is my, as you've probably heard me say many a time, my favorite tool, my number 3 F20 feel gouge. So that has a very slight curve to that. Now this is a great little trick I've learnt. Take a permanent marker, hope you can see that, and colour in your bevel on the back. Cool. So now that that bevel is coloured in black, I hope you can see that. It's a bit shiny, isn't it? Now, as I sharpen, I'm going to be removing that texture marking, so it will show me where I have or haven't sharpened. I'm just going to get that stone really wet because it has been sitting dry for quite some time. Also, a good thing about water stones is they are cheaper than your diamond stones. So if you're starting out, that can also be a good thing. Now, it's really important to get your stone at the right height. So my hip, bench. So with my stone raised, it is pretty much on my hip height. This is a whole body action. I'm locking, kind of like when we're carving, I'm locking my right arm into my, I'm right-handed, into my right hip. My feet are slightly wider than shoulder width apart. You just can't see that. And I'm balancing myself. My feet are facing forward. And I am gonna try and find that bevel. See, I'm swinging my whole body. I'm not just doing this with my wrists. That wouldn't give me very good control. but I'm swinging my whole body from side to side, creating a rock. I don't know if you can hear where it's dragging on one corner. Now we can look at that, and because I stopped and started, you can see I'm clearly not sharpening this edge enough because I still have my black texture there. And I'm not coming onto that top edge there either enough, which would end up creating a double bevel, which we don't want. So you can dry it off, re-texture it. So now I know next pass, I actually want to tilt the blade up a fraction, and I mean a fraction more than I was. So yep, you can see I'm getting slightly better results. I'm still not coming into this corner here enough. I've still got the tiniest bit of black texture. So that is this side now. So when I'm coming that way, when I'm coming this way, I'm not lifting it up enough. And this is a sort, you can be incredibly picky, but you will get the feel for it. Let's hope third time is a charm. And if you've got comments, please do pop them in the chat as we go along. So pulling that up, and let's see how this one goes. So I'm really trying to like make sure I correct the issues I made with the previous two passes. It's sounding a little more even to me. I don't think you will be able to hear that though. Well, I'm definitely getting the edge. I'm just too much over. I'm not getting all my bevel. So I tilted up too high that time. Here we go. We're starting to get a bit better progress there. Even though this is still black texture, I would rather have that than one side worn down more than the other. So now there's a lot of backwards and forwardsing and sharpening, and that's why I don't like it very much. But it is super, super important. Now let's see how we go. That is looking pretty good. I only got one little bit of black texture, and that is where the bevel sweeps down further, and that's actually, it came with an uneven bevel on the back, machined like that. So that, you can sort of just, that will give me good results. And when you're sharpening, I was doing the back side of my bevel there, I was actually passing over the tiniest burl, and I can just feel it grabbing on my fingernails. Now I've got the tiniest burl on the inside, and now I want to remove that. So into my bucket of water. This is one of my favorite. Dry my arm off. Maybe I should have had a real shallow bucket for that one. So this is just another water stone, but you can see it's pretty cool shape. I rarely recommend not dropping them on the concrete, otherwise you will lose corners like I have. It's the trouble when everything's wet though, it's all slippery. And you can just and I can feel that that's going up smoother. Give that a dry. Now to me, that's not feeling super, super sharp yet. So I'm going to put the water stone away. And this is my preferred. This is a DMT Dia Sharp Extra Fine. You can work these with oil or with water. I like water because it is less messy to deal with. And exactly the same. So this is a finer grade than that stone was. And now that's feeling sharp. And you can try things like cutting the hair on your arm. A lot of people do that. I personally just like to try it out on a piece of wood. And also, I'm sure if I was to try and cut the hair off my arm live, I would probably cut my arm and I'd have blood everywhere. So you can just see how well that cuts across the grain. It's lagging a little bit on one corner, but we are talking minuscule amounts. So next, before I jump onto the next section, I've drawn you this very technical diagram. So this is the heads of your gouges. Now, as you are swinging, let's put that there. As you are swinging from side to side like this, you want to remain your corners sharp and pointy, like in this first picture. If you do too shorter swings and you don't fully extend up side to side, you will end up creating a dip in the middle of your gouge like that. And that, when you then try and cut with that, you'll have two corners sort of bashing through your timber and the middle doing nothing. So that's not very efficient. Or if you overextend as you come around and you put too much into your corners, into your bending, you will create a dome like that. This style, I have seen many carvers who actually deliberately sharpen their tools to this. And that is if you were doing carving, like in one of our very early live streams we did, where you were taking out notches like this. So sort of like to get a notch like that, you would just be like knock, knock, like that with your gouge. This sharpening can work really well because you're not going to have your corners dig in. So it kind of depends what carving you're doing. I don't do much carving like that. So for me, having really sharp corners is highly beneficial. And then I'll move. Sorry, we've got a question. Hang on a minute. It's not coming up on this iPad. Oh, things that worked last month but might not work this month. Sorry, everyone. I will come over to the computer screen. We're going to play this old game again. I was hoping we were beyond that with my very technical setup. Good morning, Olivia. I use a similar technique with jeweler's rouge, black, white, or yellow, depending on the nick. I use it charged in a piece of leather rather than curling through. Yeah, that is pretty much exactly what we're going to get onto with the stropping. So stropping is working on a piece of leather. This is why when I say I rarely sharpen, I spend too much time carving sometimes. I rarely sharpen is because I strop. So working with these, that's sharpening. This here, stropping. I picked up this great little one. It just has all these profiles on it. It comes with a rouge of its own. It's like a compound you want to sort of rub on. That works great, but I have, in the last sort of couple of years, moved on to actually do a stropping compound paste, and I love it. It works really well. Some people use like graphite powder or all sorts. But so you just squeeze that on. Give that a little rub around, even it out. That's probably way too much, but you'll understand. And then, so for my inside curve, because that is a pretty close match to the sweep on that blade, just sweeping the inside there. Rub that excess off. And then on this, you do have a little one for the back, but I like to use a bigger piece of leather. Now, something I quite like about using, some people will have like a really thin piece nailed, like really thin thickness wise, that's really thick there, nailed onto a long piece of timber. That works great. But I personally like a thicker piece of leather because I can bend it slightly. And I can sort of just curve that up around the shape of that tool there. Doing this, if you do this regularly enough, as soon as you get any sort of drag on your tool as you're carving, can mean that you rarely have to sharpen them. That is much nicer. I don't think you can hear that. Maybe you can hear that now. I've got a microphone in my ear. I'm not just holding it next to my ear for your ears. Where did I put that piece of wood? Here it is. Now that that's stropped, we can give that a little, yeah, that's cutting far nicer. You can see those sort of wafer thin curls I'm getting. Curls are a really good indication of a really sharp tool as you come along. So that's probably one of your easier shaped gouges to sharpen. Next, I will show you my least favorite gouge to sharpen. Actually, no, there are worse. This is a V-tool. Now, so a V-tool, you may or may not be able to see that in that little camera. It's not just two pieces it's not just two straight edges meeting at a perfect point like that. It is shaped like this. So you've got one wing, they're called wings on the side of your V-tool, another wing, and then a U shape at the bottom. And what that does is that actually gives you 1, 2, 3 separate areas that need sharpening. And they all have to be sharpened in time with each other in order to work. Because if you over sharpen the wings, then your point will be further forward, and then that will be trying to do all the cutting as you work your way through the timber, and your wings will sort of just be dragging behind and ripping the timber. Or if you over sharpen the point and the wings aren't sharp enough, then the point will be further back than your wings. So you do need to keep them all in line with each other, but I will show you how we do that. Just wet up my little diamond stone. Dry my hands. So we want to sharpen wing, wing, and then the tip is the way I like to do it, the order I like to do it in. So I've got the stone facing away from me now. This will be more like sharpening, just a flat chisel. So I'm going to rock it up until I feel it sit on that bevel and just bring it back a few times. And then I'm going to do the same on this other side. Tilt that up. Now you can start, when people do bench chisels, they like to do figure of eights and all of that. You can do that if you like. Get out my trusty. This is a difficult, it's a tiny, as you can see, the curve that I'm sharpening is a lot smaller at the front than it is at the back here. If this is too low for you on your bench, just raise it up on some blocks of wood. So now as I'm trying to get, I'm going to come round a bit more like this because the back of that rounded shape is wider than the front. So they are a pest. Yep, too much at the back, tilt that up again. Yep, so we're starting to remove some of that front, which is good. Always stopping and checking that you don't remove more of your rounded edge than your wings, because that will just get you into all sorts of strife. Now, so what we've actually curled the bevel inside there. Incredibly tricky shape to get a stone to fit into to knock off the burr on that edge, like we did with this stone on our bigger gouge. So that's where this little gadget comes in super handy. It's got all these different profiles. I sort of deepened the channels on this one so that I could fit a big V onto it. And then it's just a case of cream it up, laying that as flat as I can, just pull that along. And then I would switch over onto here, flatten that out a bit. And of course, get that little, got to give him a little sharpen up there. Yes, I highly, highly recommend getting some of that feel stropping paste. And hopefully when you test it, all three sides will feel the same. Yep, that's feeling pretty good on the outside. So to finish off, I'm just going to quickly just remove anything, any little burr we might have. That feels good. Get my, how on earth have I lost my test piece of wood every single time? We'll give that a and you can't get little curls like that out of a V-tool unless it is sharp. There we go, that's nice and sharp. But when I tell you that I rarely sharpen everything, take a tool like this. Like, it's pretty curved, it's just starting to dull. It will still cut, but you can definitely hear a slight grab. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Hang on, I'll put this down there and you might be able to hear that. Who knows if that worked, but let's hope so. So it's getting the slightest slight grab. If I hold this up here, you can see it's just starting to rip fibers on the edge there. And you know, looking at that, I could continue carving really happily with that for a really long time. It would take a while, like quite a long time, before somebody would call that a blunt gouge. But in order to save yourself all the effort of carving and to keep things as sharp as possible, Just get some paste on my piece of leather there. And you can do this often just really quickly. It's a bit more forgiving than the stone as well. So I just sweep that round and round, wipe that extra paste off. And then I've got the option, that's probably my closest match. Sometimes I'll try really bend it. Nope, that's not going to fit. So then I would to this little guy. Rub that on there. Now, because this semicircular shape is not an exact match for the inside of my gouge, I'm going to hopefully be able to show you how to do this. And then I'm going to spin that and try roll the other way. And that's what I'll do as soon as I notice, I feel that's far sharper already. As soon as I notice this tiniest bit of lag, I will just really quickly give it a strop. Like I showed you before, using a bendable piece of leather, I can flip that up. Do this.